Welcome to the Real Estate Forum, a podcast from the Paul Milstein Center for Real Estate at Columbia Business School. I'm your host, Raphael Sidelsky. This is your place for key insights into the evolving real estate landscape, from candid conversations with real estate thought leaders, including the esteemed faculty of the MBA Real Estate program, to cutting-edge research from the Milstein Center's Research Lab. Let's dive in. My guest today is Meredith Marshall, co-founder and managing partner of BRP Companies. BRP is a fully integrated real estate development firm focused on mixed income and workforce housing in high-barrier urban markets, with more than $6 billion in completed and current transactions on over 15 million square feet of development across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Meredith is responsible for executing BRP's investment strategy and has led the firm's strategic partnership initiatives, including its long-standing partnership with Goldman Sachs' Urban Investment Group and its active relationships with the New York City agencies. Prior to BRP, Meredith was at Massa Capital Advisors and executed cross-border investments across Africa on behalf of Kingdom Holdings Africa, Prince Al Walid's investment vehicle. Earlier in his career, he worked on telecom and media transactions at Wasserstein Perella & Co. He holds an MBA from Columbia Business School and a BS in electrical engineering from Boston University. Meredith, welcome to the Real Estate Forum.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, and good afternoon.
You have a fascinating journey into real estate investing. You studied electrical engineering and began your career at AT&T Bell Labs before going to Columbia Business School. Tell us about that early stage of your career and what ultimately pulled you from engineering into finance and investing, and what from that experience still guides how you invest today.
Yeah, we tell a little joke that I was a terrible engineer and a better business person. But I was a project manager for AT&T Bell Labs in Merrimack Valley, north of Boston, for about 2 years. And then they moved me over to New Jersey at the Whippany Labs that they were working on Autoplex 1000, which became cellular telephony. At any rate, at that time, you could take two paths. You get your master's degree or PhD in engineering and move up the ladder in the technical sense, or a lot of my peers went on to business school. So I love business and I took that track. So I applied to Columbia Business School and, I had my MBA in finance and international business. And I was fortunate to land a job at Wasserstein Perella in the media, entertainment, and telecommunications group. And I leveraged my telecom background with finance, and I had perfect timing because that was the beginning of convergence between computing and telephony. So the timing was right, and it served me well for 3 years. Worked on some interesting transactions, mergers. Their AT&T purchase of McCaw Cellular, Nynix and Bell Atlantic merging to become Verizon. A lot of those seminal transactions.
And what did working on those large-scale transactions in an investment banking environment, what did that teach you about capital and risk?
Well, if you look at McCaw Cellular and a lot of the cellular companies that we worked with, they were groups that were entrepreneurs who won these cellular licenses that convinced capital to join them. And they were selling out the McCaw family at, $17.5 billion to AT&T. So it told me, it taught me basically smart capital, timing, and opportunity can lead to great things. So after 3 years of doing that, I actually sought out to invest in private equity in emerging markets. The thought was primarily to do telephony in Middle East and Africa, but it blossomed into other sort of verticals like banking and agribusiness, primarily. But it just taught me to, timing's everything. A smart operator with opportunistic capital can drive tremendous success.
How was the experience working across Africa? You even did a mixed-use real estate development in Harare, Zimbabwe.
Yes.
So what was that experience like?
Well, that deal was accidental, but the person who introduced us to Prince Al-Walid, through uh, his wife, uh, who made a connection. They had this project that couldn't get financed. So we talked to some London banks along with a New York investment bank, and they lent them, I think, $30 million, and Prince Ali provided some equity capital. But because of hyperinflation, that deal took about 12 years to be built, but it finally got built. But it was a great deal. In Zimbabwe, but that was accidental. We meant to do telecom, and that deal fell in our lap, and it was the tallest non-governmental building in Zimbabwe, I think, to this day. Mixed use project. I'm very proud of it because talk about difficult, high barrier to entry markets. That's a very difficult market to operate in, and we pulled that off.
So what led you to leave Africa and come back to the US and start doing real estate investing? Walk us through the early evolution of BRP.
Well, 2001 happened, and the world sort of slowed down given what happened in 9/11. And in fact, my partners moved to Joburg, Johannesburg, South Africa. And in 2001, I happened to get married, and my wife was pregnant, so I couldn't take that risk at the time. So I was investing in real estate with another college buddy along the way, and my wife told me, "Look, if the Africa thing's not working out in private equity, why don't you just, start this real estate business?" It was a hobby at the time, and we were doing well. And of course, my wife is a lot smarter than me, and she's a Columbia Business School grad also. So we set up in my bedroom, and eventually moved to a storefront with just 3 employees, and we started BRP development. We started with a 4-family brownstone conversion to condo, 9 unit, 25 unit. And we rapidly grew. In a few years. We needed about 10 million in capital. And a friend of the family sold his business for $500 million. And we didn't know that at the time, but he invested his family office invested $10 million of his capital in 2005. 2007 happened. We had the Great Recession. Some of those deals had to turn into sort of affordable deals with the city of New York. And he introduced us to Goldman Sachs Urban Investment Group. So Urban UIG, or the Urban Investment Group, replaced our family office in a strategic joint venture in 2007, committing $20 million to the transaction. And fast forward 15 years later, they provided over 1.6 billion in capital to our platform, largely because Goldman Sachs became a bank holding company and really need to expand their CRA business. And our timing was right. So we grew an affordable workforce, mixed income platform, fully integrated. We started a construction company and a management company, and about 2/3 of our portfolio is Goldman Sachs related.
That was clearly a transformative moment for your evolution. Tell us, what does BRP look like today?
BRP is actually a bit larger. We're doing so we have an affordable component where we're building 100% affordable projects with the city of New York, primarily LIHTC deals using low-income housing tax credits. 250 unit in the Bronx, a 420 unit in Jamaica, Queens, and we're building an 1,800. Not building, but we're renovating 1,800 units for New York City's Housing Authority, NYCHA, in their RAD conversion, so their PAC program. So we have over 2,000 units in progress, low income units, but we're building, mixed income development. So we're renting up about another 1,500 units of mostly market rate developments, large scale, 500, 600 sort of high rise towers in New Rochelle, and actually 2 in Jamaica, Queens also. We're expanding in 5 different states. So we're in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, DC, Atlanta. And I think we just bought something a few days ago in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. So AC rehab. So we're doing new construction and acquisition, rehab, value added, permanent affordability type mix developments. And we have a tremendous, robust pipeline of over $3 billion in controlled transactions.
Workforce and mixed income housing have become central to BRP's identity. When did that become a deliberate focus?
When we started out, and I failed to mention, we started out just doing market rate deals, right? And then 2007 happened. We didn't know what a tax credit was before 2007. We kind of knew, but we didn't focus on it. 2009, we closed on the first deal in New York City. And now we're sort of, masters of every tax credit known to man, right? LIHTC, state tax credits, brownfield tax credits, historic tax credits. We do a lot of brownfield tax credits in New York City. So well, we started learning how to work with the government, work with the federal government and LIHTC, but then work with public-private partnerships. But what we noticed is there's a lot of capital, a lot of programs targeted towards below 80% of AMI, which is the HUD definition for affordable housing. And then affordable tax credit, right, low income tax credits is 60% of AMI, but you can income average up to 80. So if we have a perfect transaction for us would be 1/3 at say 40, 1/3 at 60, 1/3 at 80% of AMI, averaging at 60. But right above 80% of AMI, 80, anything, 81, 82, you don't qualify. That's the missing middle. And most high growth areas, that's the area that they need to focus on because they're, entry level, first responders, teachers, they're at the 80% of AMI level. And all the way up to 120 and 130, no one's really building because construction costs the same no matter what you build. So you'd rather build straight market rate, which is typically in the coast at least above 130 of AMI for those potential buyers or renters, and the heavily subsidized below 80% of AMI. So the missing middle is a tremendous market, pent up demand. And we tend to focus on that because if you can build something that addresses that market, yeah, you have less competition, high barrier to entry, and we've had tremendous success targeting that missing middle.
From your vantage point, what's the single biggest constraint preventing New York from having enough housing? And what are your solutions to the housing crisis?
Wow, I don't know if there's one constraint, but we need alignment. If you look at the policies, right, the programs and the opportunity, there's no alignment. So, case in point, we went over 2 years without tax abatement, the 421A, the as of right tax abatement, affordable in New York, whatever you want to call it now. Now it's the 485X. Without that, you can't build anything, especially rental housing, that is. So we didn't have policy alignment. And that happened in June, I think 15th, 2022, which was when we had low interest rates. So we waited 2 years where interest rates were double to now have a 485. And now, in most instances, rental housing is almost impossible to build in New York because you don't have alignment with the tax abatement, the regulatory framework, and reality, right? So I think that's the biggest impediment in New York is I talk to my team, we can double our capacity if we just tweak the existing regulatory regime, which means the tax abatement policies, and and a bit zoning, which has been addressed with some of the zoning initiatives, the city of yes, and some of the recent initiatives at the city council level. They're making it easier and faster to get deals approved, but without the right, you know, um, regulatory environment in terms of tax abatements, um, it's very difficult to get deals done. And we can get into what we're doing at the state, which I'll cite K. If you're building in Manhattan and you get the right acquisition price, deals work in Manhattan because the upper end, right, in the mixed income model, the market rate rents have to cross subsidize the lower rents. And you could do that in Manhattan. You could do it in the Gold Coast of Brooklyn and even the Gold Coast of Queens and, Long Island City, Astoria to a lesser extent. but in 80% of the city, New York City boroughs, it's very difficult to make um, mixed income projects work without tremendous subsidy from the from government.
Well, we're going to talk about Sidekick later on, which is a great case study. But before we get to that, you said that 95% of your developments are around mass transit. Why is that? Why is that such a fundamental thing for the way you develop?
It's just our investment thesis. We tend, I'm giving away our competitive advantage, our strategy, but we tend to build a minus product and say B markets. And the distinction is, if you have transportation, you make it easy for say aspiring renters to make that decision. So if you have a young college graduate and you're building great product in Jamaica, Queens, but Jamaica, Queens wasn't a destination that a lot of college graduates found attractive. If you're close to the train station and you build a great unit, and our units can compete with any units in downtown Brooklyn, even certain parts of Manhattan. But if you're close to transportation, a person can get to work in 20, 30 minutes. That sort of is the tipping point in terms of decision making. If you take a bus to a train to get to Manhattan, you know, and to get to your office, that's a different argument than something that's has ready transit access and is considered a TOD site.
Well, that's a great segue to talking about some case studies. And, as we go through them, it'll be helpful for you to walk us through how you've been able to achieve, the investment returns you need to hit for your investors. But at the same time, you've created thousands of workforce housing units, thousands of jobs, significant energy savings, and brought these essential community spaces into your portfolio. So Jamaica is a site that sits at the intersection of transit density and airport access. You explained the thesis behind that and how has it performed relative to your expectations?
It's met our objectives. The first project we had was called Jamaica Crossing, heavily subsidized. It was a private purchase of land, but we brought the city and the state in, had brownfield credits, and it's 669 units of 100% affordable housing, but varying degrees of affordability. So from low income, one third moderate, say from 80 to 120, and then the top end rents are 130 of AMI. So it's all affordable, but it's heavily subsidized, and you have to go through a city lottery. So the rent up has to go through this special program that's heavily regulated. That was our first project. We had two other projects. We used private capital. So we had an OZ site. That project's called the Monarch. It was done 100% equity. OZ, there's no debt on that project. $300 million project. I think the first of its kind, probably the largest OZ in the country at that time. And that project is renting up now. I think it's 50, 60% rented. These projects were all done within the last year, 18 months. They're so large, it's taken two years plus to rent them up, but they're doing well. And the last project that we completed last April is called the Ruby Square in Jamaica, Queens, 12-story building, 605 units. That's renting up nicely. But they're large, developments. So they're going to take a while to rent up, but we're hitting our rent objectives. But again, these markets are the missing middle. So the market rents are about 120 to 130% of AMI. So we bought the land at a great price. We have our own construction company, so we have an integrated approach. So our build, our hard costs were in line. And again, we built to 21, 22 was actually a good time to start building. Prices have ticked up, but the projects are doing very well. And we're proud of what we've done. We just closed in another 420 units, but the city, in terms of, allocation of resources, that's going to be 100% LIHTC, low income up to about, I think the high end rents are 90% of AMI. So that's more deeply affordable. but that last project was heavily subsidized. So we started, right, our thesis with a P3 with the city of New York. We built two with private capital, largely with Goldman Sachs. The other group was AIG and Basis, a private equity firm. And the fourth project is, again, with the city of New York. But if you look um, at the spectrum, it's affordable on the bookends, 100% affordable, but right in the middle, we have almost 1,300 units of primarily 70/30 owing to the 421A. So 30%, between 80 and 130 of AMI and the balance of market rate. But again, that balance of market rate is right in line with what the community can pay. So everyone's happy. And typically, you don't have the alignment. We have from the community board, all the elected officials up to the congressmen supporting the project and no opposition because most of the workers there and the residents can't afford to live there on the low income affordable side and the market rate side because the market rate sides are capped. And that's, I think, the probably in terms of case studies, very compelling for everyone because no one complained about displacement. We don't hear the gentrification because if you look at the bill, it reflects the community, but it's a very diverse community in terms of socioeconomic and ethnic and culture and everything. Because Queens is sort of the UN of the country if you if you look at the demography of Queens. But it's a very interesting case study in urban development.
The Urban Empowerment Center is a 250 million mixed-use development anchored by the National Urban League's return to Harlem, including affordable housing and the Urban Civil Rights Museum, which is opening this year. What made that project viable after prior concepts had failed on the site?
Oh my gosh! Again, case study in public-private partnerships (P3) done the right way. Initially, the National Urban League is probably one of the most revered civil rights organizations in the country, alongside of the NAACP. They were founded in New York City in Harlem, but they were headquartered in Lower Manhattan, and they were renting a building. And the thought was they could move to DC, closer to the seat of power, move to Atlanta, where sort of they have the civil rights sort of narrative going for them now and the resurgence of that region. But they wanted to stay in New York City. So they bid on this RFP in Harlem. They were founded in Harlem. They wanted to return to Harlem. And the RFP took place, I think, 2013 or 14. We won the RFP. But the community had a say because it was a existing parking lot owned by the city and the state. They had some retail tenants there. So we had to be careful about how we relocated the tenants. The parking facility had to stay up for a few years. The elected officials wanted 100% affordable housing on the back end. So we had to incorporate that. And that had to receive subsidy from the state and the city, primarily from the state. The Urban League had to raise money because they wanted their own office, but they wanted a conference center and the Civil Rights Museum. So there was a fundraising requirement for the National Urban League. And then for the housing and the retail, we owned the retail and some office, some spec office. We had to sort of figure out how to finance that. So Goldman Sachs provided the construction, a lot of the construction financing. We have Upper Manhattan, Manhattan Empowerment Zone, UMES providing some debt financing. There's tax credits. There's tax exempt financing from the state of New York. There's some city subsidy involved and some equity. There are three developers, BRP, L&M Development Corp, and Taconic, and Prisic is a retail developer. So there are almost four developers on it, along with the Urban League. So we had to put all that together. And suffice to say, that took about 7 years. But the building, opened up over 18 months ago. It's a great building. We have the first Trader Joe's in Harlem. We have the Target in West Harlem. So we have great anchors. We have a lot of great tenants in the office space, National Urban League, but we have UNCF. We have Studio Museum of Harlem. We actually have a HBCU, which is Historically Black College and University, Virginia Union. They have their continuing education program there. And we have other tenants that are negotiating leases there. So The office is probably the best Class A. It is the best Class A office space in Harlem. Great retail, and it has great residential. The 100% affordable was rented up in a few months with overwhelming um, demand. In terms of it was a lottery, so we had about 10,000 applicants for 174 units. So the project's doing well, but it took a while to assemble all those, sources of capital because it was a mixed use project, but it was a 100% affordable project. It was a museum. It was the headquarters for the Urban League, and it was a market rate retail office spec office play. And we had to put all those elements together, and it took a while. And we were closing during COVID. So you can imagine.
That is a phenomenal project, mixed use in the truest sense of the word. And it's incredible that you were creative enough to put all those different uses and functions together. And you also have a partnership with New York Foundling, where there are individuals who age out of foster care who are able to lease units there as well. Site K is a 1.35 billion mixed-use development across from the Javits Center that'll deliver nearly 1,400 residential units, including more than 400 permanently affordable homes, alongside a 455-room hotel and the permanent home of the Climate Museum. It's also the first project in more than 60 years to exceed the 12 floor area ratio cap following recent state reforms. How critical was that zoning reform to getting this project done? And tell us more about the project.
Yeah, the zoning reform. See, everything. Well, you mentioned before alignment. What would it take to increase supply and alignment? So we have zoning reform. You actually have, I think, a recognition, an acknowledgement that we need to get these projects done and get them done quickly. So there was an RFP that got stalled during the COVID era. They reissued the RFP. We won it along with our two great development partners, Boston Properties and Ammonium Group. And the city and state are partners. It's a perfect P3. And so the zoning's in place. It's going to have 30% affordable units in Hudson Yards as a rental, which is difficult to pull off. It's going to be a 99-year ground lease from the state. Um, and it has all of the elements of the mixed income development, but it has all of the features that everyone wants. We have a top line um, user in terms of recreation. I think Lifetime is noted. We have the Climate Museum. We're gonna have some restaurants. We're gonna have a 5-star hotel and a great operator, and some conference space to service the Javits Center. I think this would be probably a case study in public-private partnerships, but there's something for everyone in this development. So there's, you know, me in New York, you don't have agreement, 360 agreement. You do in this case, because the site was heavily negotiated with the community. And given that it was an RFP and it was the second go at the RFP, you have a lot of stakeholders had input into the process. So you're right. Um, we had alignment. We had a lot of encouragement from the state to actually push the limits in terms of zoning, but at the same time, keep that affordable mix, that 70-30 in place. So the project is penciling out nicely now. Hopefully rents can stay up where they are, and hopefully interest rates come down and construction costs will stay pretty constant. That project we built 100% union also.
You've built BRP from a storefront into this multi-city, multi-state platform. What are the leadership lessons you've learned along the way?
The number one leadership lesson is hire smart people, give them great direction, provide them resources, and then stay out of the way. We have people. The saying goes: once you join BRP, you don't leave. We just make the environment. It's a fun environment, entrepreneurial environment. Um, we just let them go. And it's a beautiful thing. We have engineers, architects, finance people, urban planners. We have leadership that used to work for the city and state, typical finance, Wall Street, MBAs. And when they come together, it makes amazing. It's an amazing orchestra. And I'm just the conductor.
What advice do you have for real estate developers about incorporating social impact into their investment frameworks?
It's in our DNA. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I got started. I think I told this at Columbia at one point. Um, when we were starting our development company, um, I had a colleague who I had a family member who had a foundation in Harlem, and her husband was in affordable housing, but they were Park Avenue, very wealthy group. And he says, I have an issue in Harlem. I need a group like your group who has more community credibility to join me. And he took me to a unit he was going to demolish, interior demolish a building to build for sale units for the city of New York. And it was in bad shape. And we were market rate guys, smaller guys. I wasn't in affordable housing. I didn't know how to handle that. And I left the building saying, nah, this is too much for me. And it was a young kid that saw me in the building who happened to be in the unit. And he was coming out with his mom to go to the store. And he said, hey, are you the guy that's going to work on this project? And a light bulb went off. And I said, that's it. I can do good and do well at the same time. So all of my training, all of the pedigree, the engineering, research engineering, the project management, the Wall Street training, the private equity and emerging markets, very difficult to operate environments, everything sort of came together and synthesized into this opportunity. And we were able to scale it up from, a three-man shop in a storefront at Fort Greene now to a multi-billion-dollar platform with a lot of runway ahead of us.
Well, Meredith, before we wrap up, I always like to ask for advice or recommendation outside of real estate, whether that's a book, a philosophy, a work of art, a mode of exercise, anything that comes to mind?
My business, and it was mentioned, my business partner is Jeff Lanoy. He's a fraternity brother of mine. We've been roommates since we were teenagers, and he's still my business partner. I have a lot of college buddies and relationships involved in our business. And there is a fine line between my personal life and my business life. And it's a symbiotic relationship. Like, I'm having fun. Like, I don't think I'm going to work. Right? I don't have to check in. It's just something I love to do. And at night, sometimes I can't contain myself because I'm happy to go in on a Monday and solve problems. So I think for me, that sort of drive and that's sort of nuanced way of looking at it, serves me well. So I think I live by, uh, one desire, and that desire is to just keep going. So for me, it's um, they say it's work-life balance is the key. For me, everything is the same, right? My life is work and work is my life. So it just serves me well. So it's not one book, it's not one text, is it's not a song. It's just how I live my life. And it's like pedal to the metal, full bore, let's get it. So that's how I live and that's how I do everything. At some point, my wife says, when are you going to retire? And I said, when, when I'm horizontal, because I love it so much.
Well, it definitely comes through in the way you talk about your work and all the projects you do. So I wanted to thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Forum. We look forward to seeing how you and BRP Companies continue to transform urban landscapes and prove that social impact and commercial success can go hand in hand.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Forum, a podcast brought to you by the Paul Milstein Center for Real Estate at Columbia Business School. Be sure to subscribe for more insights from real estate thought leaders, industry professionals, faculty, and the latest research and expertise from the Milstein Center's Research Lab at Columbia Business School. If you've enjoyed the episode, please follow, rate, and share the podcast. You can keep up to date with the Paul Milstein Center for Real Estate at business.columbia.edu/real estate. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.